Hi guys, my name is Robin and today I'm here to bring you my October wrap-up. So I've had a pretty good reading month this month. So I read 9 things in total, 4 of which were graphic novels, and then the other 5 were books. I didn't read some of the things that I was meant to read for my pointless TBR, but we'll get to that in my next TBR video. So for this, I read some really good things this month as well. I think I gave most of them 4 stars, and then a couple 5s and 1 3, I think, from what I remember. But let's get into talking about the books that I read this month. So the first book that I read was The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty, and this one I listened to on audiobook. I gave this book 5 stars. It was incredible. I love this series. It is one of my favourite series of all time now. It's the second book in the David Bard trilogy. Because it's the second book, I can't really tell you a lot about what is going on in this book. But I can tell you that it follows Jin, or Devas. There's a lot of magic, there's a lot of politics, which I absolutely loved. The world building is incredible. We get to see a lot more of the city in this book than we did in the last ones, as a lot of the first book was travel based. We also get to see a lot more from our characters, because from the first book to the second book, 5 years have passed. It just starts from 5 years after the end of the first book, which I actually really loved because it speeds through all of the, the beginning bits that wouldn't have been as interesting. And I definitely recommend the series. It is excellent, it is 5 stars, I loved it. The next book that I finished was The Golden Tower by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black. This is the 5th book in the Magisterium series. It's a middle grade fantasy series set at a magic school. I really enjoyed this series. I gave this book 3 stars, 3.5 stars. It was an okay ending. A lot of it was just rushed, which lowered my enjoyment. It is only 250 pages because they are middle grade as well. They are shorter books, all of them were. But as a full conclusion, a lot of it was a little easy, a little convenient, but it was okay overall. This series as a whole I would recommend for younger readers. I started reading it a long time ago and it just followed on because they were quick, easy reads that I quite enjoyed. But for adult readers, or people who usually read young adult, it might read a little young. And as I said, things are quite convenient, easy. They're just quick, easy, simple reads. So if you're looking for something that's just easy, simple, you'll get through real quick, these are a good choice. But don't expect it to be as complex as a high fantasy. The next thing that I read was The Tea Dragon Festival by Katie O'Neill. This is a graphic novel series. I started this one because the 3rd one comes out, I think it came out actually in October. I read the first one a long time ago, but had never gotten around to getting the second one. This one is a library copy. Just because our library's finally reopened, which was great. So I got to get a bunch of stuff that I'd been putting off for a while, especially because bookstores are closed as well and shipping is a nightmare. So the library has helped me out. This is a really cute young graphic novel series in which we follow different characters and their tea dragons. So tea dragons are these small little dragon-like creatures that basically grow flower blossoms or herbs from themselves, and the people who keep these tea dragons then pick those flowers and herbs and brew them into tea. And it's adorable. The art style is incredibly cute as well. I'll show you just the last section. which just shows like the tea dragons. See, they're just cute little adorable, beautiful artwork, really quick to get through. I think it's 150 pages long. They're just, you know, sweet, innocent, just something to make you feel a little bit happier in these dark times. So for this graphic novel I gave it 5 stars, just because it's, you know, it brightens up your day, beautiful art style. The stories are a little short. I would actually like them to be a bit longer, but they are, you know, little more middle grade graphic novels, so it's okay. They all add together as well. So this one is actually set before the first one by I think a couple decades, and we do follow some of the same characters, but a lot of them aren't in it, but I love the new characters. It was beautiful and just sweet and innocent and lovely. The next book that I read was Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty, and this is the 3rd book in the David Bird trilogy. I listened to this on an audiobook as well, and would say actually I really recommend the audiobooks because they are incredibly well done. So this one I gave 5 stars as well. Absolutely loved it. It was such a stunning conclusion to this series, because at the end of the 2nd book the world just opens up. There is so much going on in this world and with all these characters. There's still a lot of mysteries involved that we get to finally have an answer for, a conclusion for in this 3rd book. It is incredible. It made me cry. The ending is bittersweet, like incredibly bittersweet, because there are things that I'm incredibly happy about and things that I'm less so. But I think it has that perfect balance with this ending, and I loved it. It was great. There was so much politics, drama, everything was going on, and there are a lot more magic systems involved, a lot more creatures, a lot more in this 3rd book, which was really interesting, and I loved it. And I've checked to see if she's written any more or if she's planning to write more within this world, because I love this world and I would read anything else she writes. I could follow different characters, it could be before or after or anything. I would read it. It is incredible. I love this world. I just want more of this world. I just want more. Give me more books, please. The next book that I read was Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab, and this book I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book, more so than the last book as well. In this book our main characters are in France, or in Paris, and they are investigating the catacombs basically. So our main character, Cassidy Blake, her parents are paranormal experts, I think is what they call themselves, and they have a TV show where they go and film at haunted locations. And Cassidy Blake can actually see ghosts. So she had a near-death experience, and from that point she can then see beyond the veil. And we basically follow her as she's figuring out her powers, what she thinks she has to do because of getting the second chance at life. And it's really good. It's middle grade. It's really incredibly sweet and cute, and the relationships are beautiful and I love them. But also in this one, more so than the last book, I really enjoyed the path it took with the ghosts. So in this one we follow a poltergeist, whereas in the last one I think it was just a ghost, if I remember correctly. I got through this book incredibly fast. I think it's 300 pages, but I flew through it in a day or two, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected. I actually really enjoyed it for Halloween as well, since I barely had any real Halloween books this month. But again, I would recommend this for younger readers, but I do think that people who read YA would also really enjoy this series, because I really enjoy this series and I read a lot of YA and adults. But this book was fantastic and I cannot wait for the next one. I wanted to just start the next book straight away, but it's not out until I think February next year, so I'm gonna have to wait. The next 3 things that I read were Paper Girls Volume 2, 3 and 4. This is a graphic novel series that I started this year. I had Volume 1 for a really long time, but I have just never started it. These are all library editions as well. Thank God for the libraries opening. And they follow these 4 young girls who are in the late 80s, and they are paper girls, so they deliver papers. But while delivering papers in the first volume, aliens seem to invade the planet, and it just goes from there. It is insane. It is great. I loved it. The world, again, there are cliffhangers at the end of every single one. Let's just get into that. So you really don't know what the hell is going on. But as you go through, they are learning more and more about these worlds, about themselves, and about what the hell they have been caught up in accidentally. And it's great. I love it. I'm waiting for the 5th volume from the library, so once that comes in I will definitely be reading it. But I definitely recommend this to people who enjoy science fiction, because it is quite science-based. But it's also, I think anyone of any age could also read and enjoy these graphic novels. They're super easy to get through. The art is quite... it's like ordinary comics. It's also set in the 80s, so that's kind of the vibe they went through for most of these. But they are incredible. All 4 stars, would recommend. The last book that I finished this month was The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. And before I went into this book, I thought it was just going to be okay. If I'm being honest, I thought it would be a 3-star read. It would just be an okay, meh kind of read for me. In the end, I ended up giving it about 4 stars, 4.5 stars, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was so much more than I thought it was going to be. So from the synopsis, it's that our main character, Alice, her mother gets kidnapped by people from the Hazelwood. And her grandmother wrote these fairy tales about the Hazelwood. And then it turns out that maybe they're not fairy tales after all, and they are actually real. So she goes to find her mother and bring her back from the Hazelwood. But there is so much more in this book than that. The fairy tales themselves are super ominous. The whole vibe of this book is incredibly ominous. It just makes you feel off while you're reading it, and it's great. I loved our 2 main characters that we follow in this book. Everything about them. There was so much mystery surrounding almost everything within this world, which I absolutely loved. The ominousness that I've talked about was actually something that I didn't know that I needed, but that I absolutely loved for October. I think this is one of my favourite books of the month, even though I gave it 4 stars. I didn't connect with it enough to give it a 5 stars. But it was incredible. I loved it. The ending as well. We get like a full conclusion within this novel. And there's also a second book which I also got from the library. I might be reading next month. But having this one book, to me it felt complete. It felt like everything was resolved. Nothing else really needed to be done. But there were things within this world that could be expanded on, which I think might be what the next book is about. So I will be reading that one soon as well, but I love this book. I would highly recommend it for maybe dark winter days if you want something to really make you feel like on edge. This book is for you. So these are all the books that I finished this month, plus the 2 books by S.A. Chakraborty. So it doesn't look like that much of a stack without the 2 giant books that I listened to through audiobooks. I swear audiobooks are my saving grace this year. I have just had so much luck with them. Absolutely loved all the audiobooks that I've listened to. But that's all I read. It was a pretty decent reading month for me. The past week, it really dropped off. I've barely read a thing. I did start Vicious by V.E. Schwab and I'm 170 pages in. But that's all I've read in the last week. For some reason it's just that I've dropped off, barely read anything. But actually I do know kind of why that's happened. And one of the reasons is the TV show Dark Matter, which I absolutely loved and I'm obsessed with. I'm on the 2nd season now, so I've been watching that almost every night and loving it. And we also got a new board game. It's the Star Trek Ascends board game. Huge board game. And each game takes 3 hours minimum. So that is what I have been spending my time on recently. But let's hope for a better reading month next month. I'm hoping to get a lot more read. We'll see what I actually have to read when I do my TBR. But that's for the next video, so I will see you next time.